Alrighty. Welcome to Planning Building Environmental Meeting of Tuesday, March 5th, 2019. This meeting is commencing at the hour of 6:31 p.m. My name is William Riley and I'm the chair of this meeting. A note to members of the public. Councillor Gannan and Councillor Trombetta, let me say that again. Councillor Gannan, who is normally chair of this committee, is away this evening and has sent her regrets, as well as Councillor Trombetta. If you haven't signed in already, please sign in over to the right there. If you have cell phones, pagers, and or PDAs, we ask that you turn those off now. Please be advised that this meeting will be audio and video recorded. And so I'm going to move on to order of items here on the agenda. So members of committee, are there any changes in the order of items on the agenda that you see here? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to pecuniary interest and conflict of interest. So members of committee, are there any disclosures of pecuniary and or conflict of interest? A reminder that any disclosures of pecuniary or conflict of interest must be provided to the clerk of the meeting and the writing as soon as possible. So I don't see any. That is very good. I'm going to move to the public meeting version. So this brings us to the public meeting under the Planning Act portion of the meeting. We are now recessing for the Planning Committee meeting to go into the public meeting. I'm going to refer to the next document. So far, so good. All right. So do I need to give you the time for us going in? Okay. All right. Perfect. So this is a public meeting to consider a zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Roger and Lori Palacero. The Planning Act requires in Section 3412 that before passing a zoning bylaw amendment, council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing the public in respect to the amendment. The purpose of this meeting is to receive comments and answer questions from the public regarding the amendment to the Township of West Lincoln zoning bylaw. We stress that at this point, no decision has been made on the proposed amendment, and any comments received will be taken into account by the council and their consideration. The Planning Act requires through Section 3413 that council advise public that if a person or public body does not make an oral submission at a public meeting or make a written submission to the Township of West Lincoln before the bylaw is passed, that person or public body is not entitled to appeal that decision of council for the Township of West Lincoln to the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal, or also known as LPAT. Would the Deputy Clerk advise us of the method and dates by which notice of the public meeting have been given?
Proper notice was given by way of regular mail to all property owners within 120 meters of the property and all interested agencies, and through a notice sign placed on the property and posted on the township's website.
Thank you. So at this point I would ask, and I don't see him in the room, so I'm going to, pass that to Director of Planning, Brian Trouble. Will Brian Trouble please explain the purpose and reason for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for Roger and Lori Palacero?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Better make sure I've got my mic on. This is an application for rezoning that normally would come after the Committee of Adjustment has already processed a severance application. But there are a couple of little nuances in this application that have caused staff to give some advice to the Palaceros that processing the rezoning first makes more sense in this case. One of the reasons for that is the fact that back in the 1980s, the house that they would like to sever was actually constructed as a farm help house. However, for anyone that has driven by and seen this property and the residences thereon, it's a very substantial house. It is not in any way of a temporary nature or the nature of a type of structure that should ultimately over time disappear. That simply in my mind does not make sense. The second piece of the puzzle is the fact that the provincial policy talks about surplus severances being done as a result of consolidation, and the region considers consolidation the physical purchase of another piece of land. In this case, there is no purchase on the table yet, but what is on the table is a proposal to do an adjustment through farm transitioning from Roger and Lori, as I understand it, and Lori is in the audience here, to Jacob and Sarah, being a son and his wife, I believe it's son. And so the concept of continuing on farming and transitioning the farm from one generation to the next, in my mind, is very consistent with policy, but not the strict interpretation of the policy. Hence the reason why the rezoning is coming first, so that we can deal with those matters through a zoning process. If it's deemed to be appropriate, then the Committee of Adjustment can consider the severance for the surplus house as consistent with the needs of the farm. So there are a few technical items in the notice around the fact that the farm help house was built in the 1980s. The property in question is part lots 14 and 15, concession 3. The street addresses are three of them actually, 5124, 5128, and 5154 Regional Road 20. And the house in question that's proposed for severance is in the northwest corner of the farm parcel, fronting onto Regional Road 20. The farm unit, the house, and the rest of the farm buildings are more or less central to the rest of the farm parcel. There are a couple of exceptions that would have to be dealt with as part of the severance, should we be able to support it and be successful in that regard. Most of the issues are kind of self-contained in many ways, in the sense that the distance between the house and the barns on the property are not fully compliant with minimum distance separation requirements, but they are sort of self-imposed in a way. If we do the severance, their own house will be the restriction on their own farm. It's not any of the neighboring farms that are the issue. So, Mr. Chair, tonight is simply the public meeting process. There is a technical report from staff on the agenda so that we can have some discussion or address concerns should there be any. And then staff will come back with a recommendation report at a future meeting to speak to how we can proceed forward with an application of this nature. And I'll turn it back to you at this point.
Thank you, Brian. I guess I will ask, because Lori's in the audience here, would she like to come up and speak as well?
I'm just bringing forward a letter from our direct neighbor across the street, saying that they very in support of the amendment and see it as a positive step in the continuation of powerful succession of the Paulson's farm continuous generation. So I just wanted to submit that.
Okay. Okay, perfect. You'd be able to provide that to us right now, or okay, perfect. Does anybody have any specific questions they'd like to ask pertaining to this? Councillor Cody?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Director of Planning. So the dwelling that is to be separated, or that's the dwelling that's out, like, closer to the barns than the normal setback allowance?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if the severance is to be granted, the answer is yes. As of right now, it is compliant because the houses are on the same farm as the buildings. So if we support the severance, we simply have to recognize the fact that we are creating a deficiency that we need to properly deal with. So there isn't one now, and if we do it right, there won't be one afterwards. We just have to make sure we address it through the zoning process.
So my concern is, like, what other, like, we can't change the setback. So in the future, if the property was ever put up for sale and the setbacks are not within, like, how does that work?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the setbacks, should a supportive rezoning be granted, the setbacks would be recognized, which would create a legal situation, legal, not illegal. And the other piece that staff are always concerned about is making sure that future expansion of the farm is still possible. So we do some separation distance scenarios, MDS scenarios as we call them, MDS2 calculations to look at potential expansion. I understand there is potential expansion desires in the future, and we do some calculations. There is room for expansion on this property. It won't be towards the northwest, it would have to be towards the south. But so we're not sterilizing the ability of this farm to grow. It in fact still is able to grow even with the house severed, if that is what committee and council choose to do. Okay?
Mayor Bealsma?
Is it, is there a reason why that, there's a kind of a triangular, shape to the, this part one? Is that, like, I see that there's a wire fence. Is that somewhat just kind of an arbitrary corner cut off, and is that, problematic for the part one, to just kind of have that triangular shape to it? But, like, sometimes we, I understand that the farm is, you know, transitioning from from parents to grandparents, and part of that is included in this application. And is it a wise thing to not have that in a rectangular shape, just in terms of I don't know, future sale of property? Or
As proposed, my understanding is that it is following a watercourse feature that sort of is a natural divide, and from what I understand, Lori can presumably confirm, from what I understand, farm equipment doesn't cross that watercourse to the other side. So I think from what I understand, the applicant's thinking is that that's sort of a natural divide to use in that particular location. I haven't, been out and taken a look at it recently with snow on the ground.
Yeah,
It's a little hard to see all the features right now, but that's my understanding.
the water course is noted on the plan, and then there's a fence on the, it looks like on the southeast side of it, or the southeast side of it,
Yeah.
probably more so. No, I was just curious to see. I've seen a lot of surplus farm severances and the like, and some of them get a little bit wonky, and just curious to know whether that was going to be a hindrance to a future sale or something like that. But, no further questions.
The only thing I can add, just for clarity, is separation distances, back to this MDS question, which might relate somewhat to the mayor's question. Separation distances are between buildings, so the line, the angled line, doesn't really impact any separation distance calculations. So I guess as long as it sort of makes sense on the ground, it might be a logical severance. I'm not there with my head yet, but it sounds, from what I understand, like that's the basis upon which they brought this forward in that nature.
Okay. I guess, Lori, would you be able to address why it's on an angle there, by any means?
There is a ditch that runs completely from the highway that's through this. So this fence line you see is where the pasture fencing is. And then a ditch goes between, which is usually bulrushes, and then on the other side is where we've never planted crops. It's been too small, and then there's not been any cropping.
Okay.
So that's why it was done that way, just to follow that ditch line. Because to make it square, there was leave very little between that. The other pole to the rail.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
It does run all the way, you'll see those, there's run all the way back and just into the next.
Portion of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see a little bit on my screen here, so.
So that's kind of what we use as a yard for those guys. 6 years is what you're kind of seeing.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I don't think anybody has any other questions for? Well, thank you very much, Lori, for taking your time to come and address this with us. Okay, so I guess at this time, I'm going to ask, are there any oral or written submissions from anyone present regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? And I'd like to stress at this point, sir, that this may be the only public meeting held with respect to this application. Therefore, if any members of the public would like to make comments and/or provide written comments, they should state them now or present them now, as LPAT may not consider those comments during any other council and/or committee meetings. Also, anyone wishing to speak are required to come forward and provide us, come forward to the microphone at the table there and provide us with their name and address for the record prior to speaking. But I don't really see anybody else here. Okay, so That being the case, at this point, do any members of committee have any oral or written submissions on the proposed zoning bylaw themselves? Okay, I just want to make sure that wasn't you flagging me down. I will I'll say this as a formality. Please note that members of the committee must make their comments now, as the LPAP may not consider any comments made during a planning, building, environmental meeting and or any other council or committee meetings. All right, we're still good? All right. Please be advised that a technical report is being considered by committee this evening, and that a recommendation report will be forthcoming to a future planning committee and or council meeting. Please be advised that once the planning committee and or council has made a decision with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment, and if approved by council, a notice of its passing will be circulated with an appeal period. There is an attendance sheet on the right of the room, as I mentioned earlier this evening. If you would like to, I'm kind of going off script here. If you'd like to sign that and be notified later, we ask you to ensure that you fill it out and place a check mark next to the column marked Roger and Lori Palizio if you wish to be advised on any subsequent meeting and or decisions on this matter. Therefore, people who are interested in observing council and or committee discussions about any particular bylaw should solely rely on mailed notices and thus must miss the opportunity to attend the meetings. It is suggested that you watch the township website for posting of agendas to review items that will be discussed at council and or committee meetings. The agendas for meetings are posted on the township website at 4 p.m. on the Friday prior to the meeting. Additionally, meeting schedules are also noted on the website for the public to view. If you wish to receive notices by email, it is suggested that you include your email address and your mailing address and your phone number on the attendance sheet that you would have filled out this evening. And at this point, the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is concluded at 6:48 p.m. All right. I'll figure out where I left out. Okay. So I don't need to do that. I don't have to leave another time to come back in, right? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to appointments. At this time, I'll ask John Arians, I apologize if I said your name wrong there, from IBI Group to come forward to the microphone to address the Silverdale Gun Club and their permit application for site alteration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of the committee. I do have a PowerPoint presentation I'd like to share with you, and I did provide copies to the clerk. Unfortunately, it wasn't ready by the time your agenda packages were out, but there is a separate handout. I'm here on behalf of Joan Miller, who is the owner of the Silverdale Gun Club, and this is the slide that shows two parcels of land that are owned by Ms. Miller and Silverdale. They're in two separate ownerships. I've been doing land development work in West Lincoln for 20-25 years, and I think Silverdale is one of your best kept secrets. I didn't know it even existed until Ms. Miller contacted us for planning advice. It's a wonderful facility. They are licensed by the Chief Firearms Officer of the province of Ontario. They have recreational shooting there, of course, trap, handgun, skeet, and long gun. They have training and recertification for almost every police force in Ontario, including special ops and SWAT teams go there for training purposes. They also have competitions. In fact, Olympic decathlon, I think, is one of the sports, and the athletes train there for shooting. And competitions, tournaments, it's a tourist attraction, it's a wonderful resource that provides recreational opportunities throughout South Ontario. The two parcels each are about 50 acres in size. You can see the parcel on the left is where the majority of the gun club is currently located, and the parcel on the right is still primarily agriculture. And you'll also see on the air photo that there's some wooded areas and some wetlands, and those are provincially significant wetland features. Ms. Miller took it upon herself about 1.5 years ago to expand the range by adding additional berms and range areas on the parcel on the left. And when she was doing that, she also encroached within the provincially significant wetland. And that's when we were retained to provide them with planning advice and assistance on what to do to rectify this situation. This is an excerpt from your zoning map, and you see the parcel on the left is A-7. And 7 is a special provision which basically allows all the agricultural uses plus the private club. But the private club is limited to that specific gun club component. So the parcel on the left is zoned for the gun club. The parcel on the right is not zoned for the gun club. And so not only was she in difficulty with the Conservation Authority for placing the fill in the wetland, she was also in violation of your zoning bylaw for trying to establish a new gun range on lands that did not have that zoning permission. Rest assured, we are coming forward with the zoning application, but to do that requires certain technical studies, which I'll explain in a moment. This air photo shows the area where the illegal ranges were established. You can see there are 4 of them. Essentially what she did is she extended the private laneway in an easterly direction and established 4 additional ranges. Now the range on the far right is the one that extends into the PSW, and that's the one where we're going to be removing the dirt, and that's the purpose of this site alteration permit, is we're simply seeking permission to move the dirt from the wetland and stockpiling it elsewhere on the property. Now, I mentioned she ran afoul of the Conservation Authority. This is part of the restoration plan that has been approved by the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. You can see the stamp of approval over on the right side of the slide. And the different colors represent different works that need to be done. To give you an extent of the type of remediation that's required, we actually had to go onto the property, collect seeds from the different plants that are there in the wetlands, and preserve them so that when we do restore the wetland, we're able to plant back the native and the existing material that are found on site. The Conservation Authority also required an environmental impact study, which has been prepared and also has been approved. What this slide demonstrates is the comprehensive redevelopment plan of the facility. And what my goal is I have actually 3 tasks that we're assisting the millers with. The first task, of course, is to remediate the illegal dumping of fill in the wetland. And that's what's before us today. We want permission to take that dirt out of the wetland and put it elsewhere on the property. The second component will be the legal standpoint to allow those 4 ranges. And since there's a slightly different component, you'll see on the parcel that's zoned A4 or A7, there's a new building right in the middle. And I can just ask you to look at the screen. This is the building location here. What Ms. Miller wants to do is she wants to also build an indoor shooting facility so that they can operate in the wintertime more efficiently. The indoor range is about 65,000 square feet, so it's a large building. It will have indoor range, it will have a retail store for selling firearms and equipment and ammunition. It will have classrooms for their certification. It will have gun repair, and it will also have a small coffee shop. Now, to proceed with the indoor facility, I do not require a zoning application because the A-7 zone permits it. I simply require site plan approval. To proceed with the site plan application, I have to amend our environmental impact statement because we're now going to be providing washrooms and drawing water from the ground, and we need to make sure from a hydrogeological perspective we're not influencing the wetland and that we have a good source of water for both fire protection and for drinking purposes. And at the same time, I need a geotechnical report dealing with the septic system because the new building is going to have washrooms associated with it. So all of those studies have been commissioned and they're underway. We've had a pre-consultation meeting with Brian and the staff. They've also requested a traffic impact study for the new building, and that's already been completed. So we are poised to submit the site plan application for the new facility. And the new facility is actually in an area where we have the trap and the skeet shooting facilities today. So those will have to be relocated, and they're being relocated to kind of the southwest corner of the existing A7 site. So that is displacing gun ranges with skeet shooting and trap shooting, so I need to reestablish those ranges that are being lost. And what we're proposing is to put them to the north of the 4 illegal ranges, and that's what's shown on this concept plan. These are the 4 illegal ranges which I will be seeking zoning permission to approve, and immediately north of that, in this location, will be 4 new ranges to essentially take the shotgun facilities from here, which are being relocated in this area, and these ranges will be reestablished here. So the net result is a minor shuffling of the cards, and to do that I need a zoning application. But what's before us today is simply a request to take the dirt out of the wetland and to put it in what we've identified as a temporary stockpile in this location. And I will fully admit that this temporary stockpile looks like it's going to be future gun ranges, because as I've just explained, that is the intent. Ultimately, if we are successful with the rezoning, this new stockpile will form the berm for the new shooting ranges. If we are not successful with the rezoning, as Mr. Treble's report has indicated, this temporary stockpile is only there for a year, and if we don't get the zoning permission, it has to be removed as well. So there's no risk to the township for approving this temporary stockpile in the horseshoe shape as we proposed it, because ultimately you're still driving the bus when it comes to the zoning application. And if we're not successful, that dirt has to be removed. So today, I'm here just respectfully asking that you approve the site alteration permit. I believe the only reason we're here, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, is because of the volume of dirt that needs to be moved. And, you know, Ms. Miller apologizes for having done this work in advance of giving the approvals. We're here to do it right. We've got the remediation strategy. We've got a long-term comprehensive redevelopment plan, and we're looking forward to building about a $5 million facility here to help provide economic interest and tourism to this municipality. So those are my submissions, Mr. Chair, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any immediate questions? Actually, I have one for Brian. To Director of Planning and Building, Brian Trouble. He mentioned something about volume. Is this like kind of an abnormal amount of volume of dirt that was illegally placed there?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The challenge under the site alteration bylaw is that we have granted 3 levels of fill that can be imported, and once you get to the top level, which is where this application is, it requires council approval. So if you're less than 500 cubic meters, which is roughly 50 loads, that can be done 1 time per year without a permit. If you're between 50 and 100 loads, so 500 cubic meters and 1,000 cubic meters, you can get approval through staff, subject to it being appropriate for the use of the land and all that kind of stuff. Once you go over the 1,000 cubic meters, then it requires the approval of council. And I believe John's engineer has calculated that we're somewhere closer to the 10,000 cubic meters, so like 10 times what the trigger is for council.
Okay, thank you.
If I can answer, you can appreciate in a shooting range, you've got to have fairly substantial berms to keep the safety of the neighborhood intact.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Anybody else?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Cody.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Director of Planning. So this was brought in from off-site? Is that, it wasn't relocated? It's being relocated now, but initially it was brought in from off-site.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding, and John can enhance or clarify or correct, we have a bit of both going on here. I believe that there was some fill taken from the site and created sort of man-made ponds on site, also within the wetland, by the way, but that's been addressed as well, I understand, through this process. So some of it was from on-site, just simply shifting from one place to another, but the bulk of it came in from external sources. Some of it, probably about half of it, appears to have come in prior to us having any regulatory control. Our first site alteration bylaw was 2015, and the aerial photography I've seen from 2015 says that 2 of those 4 gun ranges were already there. So the 2 after that came in contrary to our site alteration bylaw to a certain extent, for sure, I think. Having said that, even if the alteration of soil is simply from one place to another on the same site, technically that's a site alteration, and technically that also needs approval of council. That's partly why, as I say in the report, it's why I went and got some legal advice from our legal counsel, because I was hoping there was a way we can interpret that if you're just moving it from one place to another on the same site, surely we don't have to go through this process. But the advice back from legal counsel was, no, you do. This is an alteration of the soil, therefore it needs to be done through this process.
For what it's worth, I'm looking at satellite images right now, and I would have never guessed this was wetland.
All right, thank you. And seeing no other questions, yeah, thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so moving to address items on the agenda. Are there any members of the public present who wish to address a specific item on the agenda? Seeing none, we're going to move to consent items. Excuse me. So all items listed below are considered to be routine, non-controversial, and can be approved by one resolution. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests it, in which case the item will be removed from the consent resolution and considered immediately following adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. I'm going to read item P23-19. Consent items agenda, number 1, multi-municipal wind turbine working group, minutes of the November 8th, 2018 meeting. 2, the multi-municipal wind turbine working group financial statement. 3, information report number PD-033-19- amendment to the municipal building bylaw, bylaw 2017-15. 4, recommendation report number PD-042-19- MPCA policy review, final living landscape policy document, September 2018. And 5, recommendation report PD-029-19- amendment to AT Realty site plan at 2887 South Grimsby Road 13, authorizing bylaw, file number 2100-015-18. The recommendation is that the Planning, Building, and Environmental Committee hereby approves of the following consent agenda items. That Planning, Building, and Environmental Committee hereby approves the, that's repeated on my script. Items 1, items 1, 2, and 3B and are hereby received for information. And 2, items 4 and 5B and are hereby received, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted, with the exception of any items that you gentlemen like to pull. Seeing none. Can I have a mover and a seconder? I have Mayor Bylsma as my mover, and I have Councillor Cody as my seconder. Are there any items that any member of committee would like to, sorry, I've already gotten that. So is there any discussion you gentlemen would like to have? Seeing none. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to communication. So item 2, P24-19, District School Board of Niagara, the redisposition of surplus real property, College Street Public School. that the correspondence with the District School Board of Niagara regarding the disposition of surplus real property be received for information and be referred to staff for report and recommendation, specifically College Street Public School, 132 College Streets in Smithville, at April Planning Building Environmental Committee. Can I have a mover and a seconder? I have Councillor Cody as my mover and Councillor Jonker as my seconder. Any discussion? Mayor Bilsma?
So is this for the purposes of developing a secondary plan through you to the Director of Planning?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Chair, sorry. I guess that's partly what staff want to do is reach out to the school board. What they have done is simply now finally declared the property to be surplus, and we'd like to have a discussion with them around the future uses and opportunities and the fact that there is a secondary plan concept on the table, and then report back to you prior to the deadline for closing of the sale.
So we, just again, to continue then, we're not necessarily looking to purchase it, do a secondary plan and put it back on the market, but to put a secondary, it's totally legitimate to put a secondary plan in place while they own it and sell it under those terms?
The council has the authority to change designation and zoning on anybody's property at any time. You don't need the approval to do so, but it's beneficial when we can work together. It probably elevates the value of their land at the same time as getting us an appropriate development style and nature of development for the area. So the goal is to see if we can't come up with an agreement to work together. And yeah, I don't really foresee recommending purchase, but that's of course something that's in your purview to do at the appropriate time. But I think if we can work together and get the right zoning and designation, that would be adequate.
Perfect. Yeah, no further.
All right. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jonker?
So yeah, basically, they're just letting everybody, the public, know that this property is going to be up for sale. Is that what this document was that we received from them?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the formality I understand that the school board has to go through is they have to actually offer it to certain levels of government first. I'm not completely clear on whether all of the levels of government are offered at the same time or whether there's a tier that goes on, federal first or anything like that. But as I understand it, there are a number of different agencies that have been notified now. Should none of those agencies express an interest, then the public will be given a chance to put an offer in. And we're basically at that level when we talk about St. Martin's School. So this one is maybe a year behind the process that St. Martin's is in. So.
Anything else? All right, so I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. The next item, P26-19, Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble, Planner 2 Garrett Baruma, report, number PD-032-19, recommendation report, site alteration approval, Silverdale Sports Center Ltd. Limited, Silverdale Gun Club, Joan Miller, trustee, concession 4 road, roll number 26020200102380, file number 3000-01-19. The recommendation that, did I miss one?
We can go back.
That's amazing. I was waiting for it. It's my first night. All right, sorry, apologies. So we'll continue with this. So I just jumped to, yeah. All right, so, okay, file, I did the, okay, so recommendation that report PD-032-19 regarding site alteration approval, Silverdale Gun Center Limited, Silverdale Gun Club, Joe Miller, trustee, concession 4 road, roll number 26020200102380, file number 300003, sorry, try that again, file number 3000-001-19 dated March 5th, 2019 be received, and that the Township Council authorize the temporary stockpile of soil being relocated on site at the direction of the MPCA from a provincially significant wetland, also known as PSW, temporarily for not more than 1 year or until alternate zoning approval is granted, should it be granted to permit further gun ranges in accordance with the attached plan. So can I get a mover and a seconder? So I got Mayor Billsma as a mover, Councilor Jonker is my seconder. Discussion? Any? All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. So I'm gonna go back. My apologies, I jumped to item B. Thanks. Thank you. All right, so, right, okay, so going back to item P25-19, Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble, re-report, number PD-030-19, technical report, Roger and Lori Placero, zoning bylaw amendment, file number 1601-001-19. Recommendation that report PD-030-19 regarding Roger and Lori Placero zoning bylaw amendment, file number 1601-001-19 dated March 5th, 2019 be received, and that a recommendation report be presented at a future planning, building, environmental committee meeting. Can I have a mover? Mayor Billsma, seconder. Councilor Cody. Any discussion? Seeing none, I am going to call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. All right. So I think I'm back on track here. Thanks. All right. So item P27-19. Planner 2, Madison Etzel, and Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble. Re-report number PD-038-19, recommendation report, Premier Kosher amending site plan agreement. The recommendation, that report PD-038-19 regarding an amending site plan agreement with Premier Kosher Inc. dated March 5th, 2019 be received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into an amending site plan agreement with Premier Kosher Inc. Can I have a mover? Councilor Cody is my mover, and Mayor Billsma is my seconder. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? That is carried. Am I going too fast? Okay, perfect. All right. So next item, P28-19, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble. Re-report number PD-037-19, recommendation report, memorandum of understanding, also known as MOU, for planning services. Recommendation that report PD-037-19 regarding recommendation report, memorandum of understanding, also known as MOU, for planning services dated March 5th, 2019 be received, and that the CAO is hereby authorized to sign the MOU once this report is ratified by the Township Council. Can I have a mover? Councilor Cody, and second by Mayor Billsma. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. All right, remote. Okay. So we're going to move on to other business. Item P29-19, Director of Planning and Building, Trees Unlimited, advertisement of information, open house, gypsy moth infestation. That there is an invitation that was forwarded by Trees Unlimited regarding an information open house being held on March 26, 2019 from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Wellandport Community Center. This is, of course, for information only, so I don't believe I need any movers or seconders. So, that being said, I'm assuming you guys understand that. Next item is going to be P30-19. This is members of committee, other business. Are there any items of business that any member of committee would like to bring forward at this time? Everybody's good? All right. It also says, okay, so that being the case, we'll move on to new business. Does any member of committee have any items of business that is new? I don't want to make it sound like I was reading the same thing. All right, excellent. So that being the case, I believe, okay, so now at this point, this concludes the open portion of the meeting. We will now go into closed sessions for the following items. Item P31-19, Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble, re legal opinion, legal matter, cannabis setback, applicable closed sessions exemptions, advice that is subject to the solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administration tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Next item that will be in closed session will be item P32, item 19, Director of Planning and Brian Treble, re legal matter 933-920 Road, applicable closed sessions, exemptions, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administration tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, advice that is subject to the solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Next item, P33-19, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, re confidential report, P-040-19, legal matter / bylaw enforcement matter, John Street, applicable closed sessions exemption before administration tribunal affecting the municipality or local board, advice that is subjected to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Can I have a mover and a seconder to go into close? I've got Mayor Bylsma and Councillor Cody. All those in favor? I'm going to need another hand up here. Well, just put your hand up, please. Don't make my night. Come on, just put your hand up.
Hey Harold, you want to come back in here? We're looking for a vote in, Council Rayner's being stubborn.
All right, that is carried. So just wait till we got confirmation that everything's shut